I first met Sharon 30 years ago, close to 30 years ago. So I'm thrilled to be able to have her here today with all of our staff. And Sharon, as I think many of you know, innovated the 7 core issues in adoption with a colleague 30 plus years ago. And that's really become a very successful, well-used framework for people to look at issues of adoption and then increasingly other types of permanency, kinship, and other types of permanency. And she finally, in the last couple of years, got around to writing the book. And so instead of the sheet of paper that we all used, there's a whole book about it now. And so for people, Danielle, I stole this back off your desk. So it's 7 core issues in adoption and permanency. I'm proud to have a copy, Sharon. I wanted you to sign it when you were in Cleveland for the conference. It didn't happen. So I do have a copy and I can loan it. I know I've loaned it to Danielle already. So Sharon was to be our keynote at our conference, which is obviously now delayed. We'll have to see what happens with that. But Sharon, we've got an incredible staff of 12 people who work day in and day out in this domain. And so we're really thrilled to have you presenting to us. And as we discussed, you're going to be recorded for your part of the presentation, and then we will turn off the recording to have any discussion or question and answer when you're done. So thank you for bearing with us and doing this presentation.
Oh, so exciting to be here. Hello from actually warm and sunny Southern California, and from a former Clevelander. So I still miss my days and my growing up years there. I want to thank Cleveland Adoption Network and especially Betsy for setting this up and giving me the privilege of presenting in this fashion. I want to talk a little bit about what's going on, how it affects all members of the adoption, foster care, and relative caregiving community, and offer some suggestions on how to help ourselves through this and how to help our children through this, whether they come to us through adoption, fostering, relative caregiving, or through birth. They're all being affected by what's going on as well worldwide. And then I'll certainly be happy to address any questions that you might have. Well, my feeling is that we've all been robbed. Life has been postponed and events missed, never to be returned in the same way. People have died. Conferences, Easter, Passover, quinceaneras, bar and bat mitzvahs, significant wedding anniversaries, 18th birthdays, high school and college senior years and graduations, weddings, even attending our loved ones and friends' funerals. Also, our support groups, reunions put on hold, regular gatherings that give our life rhythm, such as work, book clubs, exercise with friends at the gym. So why am I mentioning all of them? Some of them are huge losses, and some are temporary inconveniences. But the truth is our brain doesn't rank them. Our brain feels it, and our body feels it all the same. They all dysregulate us. They all upset us. For some members of our constellation, they're actually in the front lines. They're working in the hospitals. They're working, picking up bodies. They're working at funeral homes. They are putting their life at risk every single day. And we may have precious loved ones that are doing that. I certainly have a niece working at the Kaiser facility, and I worry about her every single moment of the day. For those of us with losses in our past, how does this impact our mental and physical well-being? How can we respond? And for people who've had trauma histories, how does this re-trigger our PTSD? Not like Not unlike how adoption and foster care may have made us feel in the past, our lives may again feel uncertain, and we may feel powerless and out of control. We can't seem to get any certainty on information, when this is going to be over, how bad it could get, and whether it'll be back again in the fall. For those of us who are alone, isolating and lack of touch feels like a real abandonment. Lack of intimacy is painful. We may be spending time ruminating over past losses, berating ourselves for past inadequacies. Our fear of losing our income, the roof over our head, as well as our lives, may lead us to do life scans. Did we do what we were supposed to do? Why were we here? Will people remember me, and how? Are we sad about words left unsaid? Is there forgiveness of others unfinished? These are end of life issues that we're confronting. We may feel desperate, anxious, and confused. We have all started this journey with significant losses. Any of us in the constellation started our life in a bit of a hole. Any additional threat of loss triggers us more than the average person. We have all suffered at least one life-altering intergenerational loss. We may put up our fists, become agitated, and move into a fight mode. We may curl up and freeze, or we may move into denial and use flight as a way of ignoring life-saving caution. There are natural reactions to unnatural circumstances. Adoption is an unnatural circumstance, and our reactions are normal. So is the virus. They feel very similar in our bodies. All constellation members have 7 common affective experiences of loss, feelings or fear of rejection, self-esteem issues connected to shame or guilt, grief responses, confused and sometimes fragile identities, intimacy challenges, and a need for power and control to regain mastery over our lives. We of the constellation have all lost a family member, born or unborn, multitudes of people, known or unknown, a role in a person's life, power and control, certainty, a whole family, a whole identity, unlived, and hundreds of historical pieces of our background missing. We do not want anything else to happen. Our reactions' intensities may fluctuate based on other losses and traumas we've experienced. So the availability of our support systems, our gender, our age, our genetics and temperament, our belief systems, our levels of resistance, our mental, emotional, or physical challenges or addictions can complicate much of what we're feeling. Some reactions may include shutting down emotionally, ongoing anxiety and agitation. I kind of feel like I've got this window open in the back of my mind and it's running anxiety there 24/7. I'll kind of wake up in the middle of the night on alert. Depression, sadness, tears, trouble eating and sleeping. Maybe some of us are doing too much of it and some of us aren't getting enough of it. Fear, exhaustion, confusion. We may perseverate, particularly by watching the news constantly, always having it running on the TV or the radio in the background. And we may be experiencing diminished trust in others. We are all grieving. This is both a personal and collective grief. Things are changing, some for the good, but some are very, very hard. Most people don't like change and uncertainty. Many of us are dealing with what I would call anticipatory grief. Nothing feels certain, and our fears may be driving our consciousness day and night. Death can be at the front of our minds. We have lost our sense of safety and anticipate the worst scenarios and outcomes. Grief may also manifest in physical pain, headaches, and stomach aches. It's important to name your feelings and share them. You have a right to them. No apologies or explanations are needed, and don't rate or judge how you are feeling or others' expressions of feelings. Stay in the present. Balance negative thoughts with positive images. Use your 5 senses to calm yourself. So stop what you're doing. Breathe deeply from your belly and notice what's going on with your senses. What do you hear? What do you see? What do you smell? What do you taste? And what is touching your body? Mastery of this tension is linked to acceptance that we personally are doing everything in our power and control to keep ourselves safe. Find meaning, opportunity, things to be grateful for daily. Our gratefulness list literally can change our brain and change the hormonal and chemical reactions in our brain. Our interdependence has become very clear. We must rely on each other in so many ways for our physical and emotional well-being. This is very hard. We are social, emotional beings. We're used to being hugged and touched. And for those people who are isolating alone, this has a very, very strong impact on one's physical health. Aside from the suggestions that I've just mentioned, here are some additional tools I'd like you to think about, and also for parenting your children who may or may not be adopted or fostered, but are also, as I said earlier, experiencing the same kind of trauma. So things you can do. Think about what other losses you've experienced, and some of you probably have a book full. What has been the greatest loss for you so far? How have you reacted? What did you learn from your previous losses? That's a real important question. What did you learn from your previous losses? And I would suggest journaling this, writing it down. Who or what are you most afraid of losing? And is it a real possibility, or is it an irrational fear? What is the worst thing that could happen to you? Remember, we're already survivors, all of us, touched by adoption, foster care, and relative caregiving. So what skills have you gained from the past, from your previous challenges? And did they work for you? Or are they applicable in this crisis? These are things I'd like you to think about. I want you to remember that fear of the coronavirus is actually deadlier than the virus. I'll say that again. Fear of the coronavirus is actually deadlier than the virus. When you are living in fear, a reactive part of your brain called the amygdala takes control of your actions. And you have a response of fight, flight, or freeze that I mentioned earlier. Your reactive state starts producing a steroid called cortisol to help you handle your stress. And this affects your immune system, which makes you more vulnerable to the virus. When we are in that mode of high cortisol levels, we appear selfish. So think about toilet paper runs, things selling out at stores. This is a reaction to stress. When we're in that kind of stressful place, we don't process well. We don't think clearly. And we lose our empathy for others because we are in survival mode. So what are you doing to address those fears? What are you doing to address those fears? A few suggestions here. First of all, you need to practice mindfulness and do a reality check. When I have somebody call me, a client or another therapist or a family member call me, and they're really, really stressed, the first thing I ask them to do right now, at this moment, do you have a roof over your head? Do you have a bed to sleep in? And is there food in the refrigerator? And are you presently healthy? Because thoughts create feelings. If you change your thoughts, you can change your feelings. And that means you have to be very, very mindful of what's going on at the moment. I suggest to people that they make a list of resources in their neighborhood, their religious community, your local, state, and national community, your friends and family. Make an actual list and post it where you can see it every day, and make a note next to those resources of what they offer you. Be specific. Free food, a shelter, information. And don't take anything for granted. I always check out phone numbers. If there's a resource that somebody gives me, I call it to see if anybody answers. And I double check that they do what they say that they do. I want to know for sure that the person at the other end of the line is going to be there when I need them. And then I suggest that you call and ask the people on your list for what you need. Like, will you check on me daily? Because I live alone. Will you check on me daily? Will you lend me money if I need it? Will you drop food or toilet paper over at my front door? Would you take me in if I lost my home? If these are the fears, check them out and see what would happen in reality if those things occurred. And then ask yourself, which of those things will I do for others? Because being in service gets us out of our fear. Post a gratitude list every single day. When I get up in the morning, it's a very Jewish thing to do, but I thank God for letting me wake up, for being able to walk to the bathroom and pee. Those are things we take for granted. And before I go to bed at night, my nightly ritual is to list all the small little things that I'm grateful for, not the biggies. The devil's in the detail, and the angels are in the detail. So if I had a particularly good peanut butter sandwich for lunch, I'm going to put that on my gratitude list. It does change your brain. Be kind to yourself and others. Connect to your spiritual beliefs and practice them. Remember your values. What do they teach you about what to do in crisis? Maybe post them as reminders. Everybody has something from the Bible, from their teaching, from their spiritual connection that comforts them. Maybe it's even a song, a hymn. Make it available to yourself. As I said earlier, don't forget to breathe. You know, we breathe very shallow when we're stressed, and that blocks access to our brain, and we don't think very well. And I know for me, I'm forgetting things. I'm really forgetting things. Sometimes I'm forgetting what I'm going down the hallway for. I thought it was an aging thing, but it's gotten worse. And I know it's stress. So we have to breathe, and we have to have access to our brain for clarity. We need to laugh. And I am so grateful for some of the crazy memes and jokes and things that are coming up on all the different sites. We need to avail ourselves of what makes us smile and turn off those things that shake us up. We need to keep a routine and get dressed. It's really hard when you're living by yourself and you don't have anybody else, even if you are living with other people, isn't it better to see maybe your spouse shaved and smelling good in the morning? We need to get up, we need to shower, we need to get dressed, we need to put on a little makeup, we need to make our beds, we need to do our dishes, because those little rituals that frame the day for us are literally bridges over troubled waters. They help us move through each day with a routine. As I said earlier, we are social emotional beings. We need to connect. We need to connect by phone, by Zoom, by Skype, by FaceTime, and maybe even actually by socially distancing on your front lawn or in your backyard. I frequently have had to remind my older friends when they are using one of those Zoom or Skype apps to back up from the camera, because we can see each other's deep, deep grooves in our faces, and it's not very attractive. So we have to teach people how to use this and use it well and not scare other people. Get outside every day, even if it's only 15 minutes twice a day. Move, get exercise and sunshine. Walk with a friend 6 feet apart. Rest and don't beat yourself up from taking an afternoon nap. Cook, read, clean out one drawer a day. Do some task that makes you feel useful. Sing. I have a terrible voice, but I am singing to myself a lot lately. I mentioned journaling. Connect with old friends. You know, all of us are so busy. Isn't it nice to go back through our contacts list and check on people we haven't talked to for a long time? It's a really fun way to connect to our past. And don't fall into a media depression hole. Limit yourself to one newspaper or one channel or whatever it is that you're doing at a certain time of day. Now, what about our children? Whether our children are adults or our children are little, what can we do to help our children? Well, first of all, for our children living with us, even if they've come home as older children, we need to maintain a routine, a schedule, and a set of expectations and rules that allows all of us to live comfortably together. And remember, in your home or as a parent to younger children, you are the leader of their emotional dance. If you're dysregulated, you can't help them to regulate their little bodies, and their brains live in their bodies. So you must be regulated to keep them from being re-traumatized. Remember, children require sensitive, responsive caregiving. They need to have their basic needs met. They require emotional support, and so do you. So caregivers need to take care of themselves in order to have a good, comfortable dance on the emotional floor with their children or their spouses or whoever they're living with. When you're talking to your children, avoid having adult-level conversations. Keep your answers brief and age-appropriate. A long time ago, I had a psychologist tell me that you shouldn't use any more words in a sentence than the child is old. So if you can't tell a 3-year-old what you want them to know in 3 words, it's gone. They lost you. So just keep that in mind when you're trying to explain difficult information to youngsters. Listen carefully to their concerns and ask where they're getting their information. Is it something they overheard you say? Did they hear it on television? Validate their fears and tell them what you're doing to protect them. Correct misperceptions and encourage them to ask you questions. Remind them that the helpers of the world, doctors, nurses, firemen, police officers, ambulance drivers, researchers, are all working hard to fix the problem. And remind them that adults are excellent problem solvers. And I occasionally will ask little kids what they would do to solve the problem. Sometimes they've got some really interesting responses. Give them things to do. Let them feel useful. And one of the things I'm finding is that for many of the children, this hand washing, even though it's all over the internet and it's in their songs and it's in their shows, they still don't get it. And there's this wonderful little exercise that you can do where you can take a little bit of glue and glitter and put it all over their hands, and then give them a paper towel and tell them to wipe it off. And it's an almost impossible job. And then you take them to the sink and you have them wash their hands for their 20 seconds or their 2 happy birthdays, whatever they're singing. The soap and water does get it off. And you can explain to them that they can see the glitter, they can't see the germs, but it's the same process. It makes it a little more concrete for our children who need more of a concrete explanation. Be as socially creative as you can. So you've been seeing a lot of it. You're seeing chalk drawings on people's driveways, rainbows in the windows, neighborhood porch parties, neighborhood walks where you're doing a safari and looking at other people's stuffed animals in the windows. I'm a big one about creating treasure hunts at home. And remember that if they're out and about and you're wearing masks, that for many children, masks are very frightening. And so we've got to talk about masks. We have to make masks fun. We have to turn them into a game. Be kind to yourself and be kind to them if mistakes are made, and model self-care behaviors. Use books and movies to play, distract, and educate. And be sure that every child has alone time with you every day. And this includes even adult children that have come home. Ask your children what they would like to do and set a timer so they know that that time is set for them and you will not be interrupted until that timer goes off. For young children, if they happen to be online doing homework, help them out. Make things together, dance, make music, play games, be silly. We need to laugh and we need to be silly. That's important. For teens, exercise together, walk together, talk about life and things that interest you, and really listen to them. Suspend your judgments. Recognize that we're all carrying a fair amount of physical distress, and that can be manifest by laziness, boredom as signs of grief, and watch for changes in behavior in terms of sleep patterns, appetite, anxiety acting out, and ask for help if you need it as an adult. On that refrigerator list of resources should be, and in this instance, the Adoption Network Cleveland should be on that list, because you need to be able to call for the kinds of therapeutic support that a family might need going through crisis. Use positive, hopeful language. Watch your tone of voice, your facial expressions, and your body language. And I'm saying to all parents, don't lie. Your kids know when you're lying, and when they're under stress, they're hypervigilant. They're really watching your face. Use some of the suggestions I gave for adults with children as well. Everybody needs quiet time, yoga for children, breathing, limiting screen time, orienting to the present. Teach them about using their 5 senses to center themselves. Do things like mutual storytelling. Make a family crest or a banner. Make a gratitude list with your children, and if they can't write, let them draw or cut out things from magazines to demonstrate where their gratitude is. Make a family movie. Family iPhone movies right now are just really occupying a lot of the families I talk to, and they're having a wonderful time making scripts and costumes and just having a great time. So lastly, practice compassion for yourself and others. Keep things in perspective. Life has always been about one day at a time. This is no different. There's never been any guarantees. Have faith in yourself. There's always been new challenges, and this too shall pass. Remember that worry is like sitting in a rocking chair. It takes a lot of energy, but you get nowhere. This is a time of being, not doing. Find joy in the simplicity that's being offered to you. And I thank you. I thank you for listening to me and for being with me. And I'm open to any questions that you may have.
Thank you so much, Sharon. Tammy, if you want to turn off the recording.